1 week season.
1 week season, fam, La Familia. Welcome back. It is week 8 DFS FanDuel Labs here at oneweekseason.com. You can see at the bottom of the screen, we have our kind of mid-season promotion, 30% off our Inner Circle subscription for the rest of the season. Use code OWS30 to get that discount. Check us out. Of course, we have our NFL Edge product. You can come sign up. No payment required. An OWS free account will get you access to all of our game breakdowns. We also have our daily dose, our daily season-long fantasy football newsletter that I run, and I'm sending out daily updates on various things you need to take down your leagues. But we are here today and this week to dive into week 8. We have had a couple of weeks, heavy bye weeks, weeks 5 and 6, week 7. Not quite as many bye weeks, but we did have a London game and 2 Monday night games. And now we are back to a full slate. There are no teams on bye this week, no London games, only 1 Monday night game. What that means is there are 13 main slate games on DraftKings this week. And for FanDuel, where we are including the Sunday night game, it is 14 games. So pretty much as big of a slate as we are going to see all season. A lot to consider. There are a lot of teams with high team totals. I believe it's like 12 teams have a team total of 21 or higher, maybe 22 or higher. So, yeah, a lot to dig through this week, a lot of options. And this is where narrowing in on the right situations and, condensing that player pool, making some tough choices becomes even more important. So we're going to bring on Maximus and see where we're at on this Wednesday, October 23rd. Maximus, how we doing?
Hello, partner. That's what we're here for, to condense and help you guys, hopefully, give you the direction to where to go to start building. I'm easily coming off my worst week of the season so far, but ebbs and flows throughout the course of the season, and look to get back on the horse here and
that was a crazy week. There was a lot going on there. It was like Bermuda Triangle sort of thing, where Watson's Achilles explodes. Juju. I mean, there's two weird things in the 49ers game. Obviously, Ayuk takes the shot. He's done for the year. ACL, MCL exploded. Kudos to him for standing up for himself and with his holdout, staying firm, getting his guaranteed money. People go after those guys sometimes or get pissed when they're holding out, whether it's a team fan or just for fantasy football perspective. But it's like, how many millions of dollars potentially did he save? Generations of his family. By being the bad guy, so to speak, for a little bit. So kudos to him. Best wishes on a speedy recovery. But yeah, there was, that. And then within that same game, you had Deebo Samuel, who, nothing really on the injury report, woke up not feeling great. They still went through warm-ups and stuff. He played 4 snaps, ran 2 routes, and then shut her down, and then reports the next day he's got pneumonia. So kind of think he's probably unlikely to play this week. And then in that same game, Juju Smith-Schuster aggravated his hamstring. He was a popular play, more popular on DraftKings, I think, because of pricing. But that, blew up a lot of lineups. And then the Rams, Jordan Whittington, who had been heavily targeted, 18 targets their last 2 games, was made active after he was questionable with the shoulder, which isn't abnormal, Usually you think shoulder, okay, it's not like he can't run or anything. And if they're clearing him, usually it's okay that, they shot him up or something and he's good to go. Well, played 9 snaps all game and didn't touch the ball, and then came out kind of after that basically he couldn't block or take a hit. But their IR, they have so many injuries that they don't have spots for any more inactive players. So he was like the healthiest of the unhealthy guys, so they could just like throw him out there a few plays and let him like just, run a route away from the ball where they knew he wouldn't, be in harm's way. So anyways, a lot of wild stuff. Jaden Daniels goes out in the first half. I mean, there was just, landmines kind of all over. So yeah, it'll be interesting how we bounce back. I think there was a lot of people in your situation just because it was such a crazy week. Like you just had to dodge landmines basically, and they were everywhere.
Yeah, some of those players I don't play on FanDuel, like with the Whittington and the Jujus. This is my style. I don't typically plays those types. The Debo one though, that was a killer. I mean, I think the news came out maybe 10 minutes before the game started or something. In my drafted league as well as DFS, I had him in some flex spots, and then of course overall one of the worst ones just last 2 nights ago? God Chriswin, with a minute left in the game, out for the year. Horrible. He was having such a great year. We've been talking about him numerous weeks. And so, yeah, the injuries were horrible. We got some breaking news even before our show today and in a couple of spots with looks like DeAndre Hopkins is heading to the Chiefs. So that should be interesting how that plays out. And yeah, a lot of stuff to account for this week.
Yeah, it all kind of just pops up quickly. Yeah, even the Debo thing, all it said was that he had an illness, but he's expected to play. So even at that, like, and we had just seen like Kenneth Walker, he popped up with an illness on Saturday, but then, he was fine. He made some pretty incredible plays. So, you think, you take some, what is an illness? It turns out it's pneumonia. I'll be interested. I would think the 49ers, they have a week 9 bye. I would think Debo's going to sit out this one. Pneumonia can be a thing though. Like my senior year basketball, our starting point guard, we were undefeated. Our starting point guard the last week of the regular season got pneumonia. And he was out like 4 or 5 days, but he lost like 15, 20 pounds. And then we got upset in the playoffs in like would have been like the 3rd round against another very good team. But basically he never really got like back to full strength. Just, it's hard to come back when you, it takes a lot out of you. So it'll be interesting. The 49ers are a team that looks like they're kind of on the rocks right now, but potentially some value as well. So be interesting to see how that one plays out. I'll pull up my screen if you're good with it.
Yeah.
And we can get started building for week 8 specifically. I guess, where do you want to start?
Well, I have 2 doors I was going to present to you. Which one did you want to go through? Of 2 spots I'm definitely targeting on the face of it. Obviously, a 13-game slate. A lot of different directions we can go here. One spot, though, for sure. Well, there's 2 games in particular. One is based on the return of a quarterback that's going to be instant value for his skill position players who are priced as if he's not coming back. And then the other door would be a game with the highest game total on the slate right now. And a team that we haven't covered. On the perception is always they're really hard to stack. But the numbers that I'm looking up are stuff is starting to condense on who you may want to stack with that one. So the 2 spots I mentioned for me would be the hopefully triumphant return of Tua with the Dolphins at home against the Cardinals. Clear stacking partners who are value priced based on, what they have been doing, which is nothing. And then the other spot would be Green Bay and Jacksonville with Jordan Love, who's just been Mr. Touchdown, which is what we like in FanDuel every week. So either of those routes are fine with me to go with. And I have a little bit of numbers and info to back up each spot, but I didn't know if you had a preference, which either of those cores. I mean, if it's Tua, I would probably do the core of Achane and Tyreek Hill. The usage when Tyreek or not Tyreek, when Tua was playing, which obviously was a game and a half this year, he had 59 targeted throws on 62 attempts. Tyreek Hill accounted for 30% of the targets, 58% of the deep targets, and 22% of the red zone targets. The only other player on the team that had any numbers close to that was Devon Achane, a running back, ironically, with 33% of the red zone targets at the receiving. So that's that stack. Tua. Now again, this is the biggest caveat asterisk. We got to know Tua's playing, of course. Reports are he's practicing today, probably as we speak. So we'll have a little more clarity later in the day after the show. After we're recording the show, it's Wednesday morning. That to make sure that he's actually playing. Obviously, if he's not, this is like just throw it up and throw it away. But I would say Hill, Achane, Tyreek. I'd love to go to. I would imagine Tyreek wants to reestablish himself as the best receiver in the league after that unbelievable one target. I think maybe no targets on Sunday, and he had like one carry or something.
Two targets, one catch for 8 yards. Had a 5-yard run.
That's unheard of for somebody of his caliber. So, yeah, that's one route. Tua, Achane, Hill. I'm pretty bullish on a few defenses and running backs this week as well who are in great spots. We could go here if you want. I'm curious about that the Packers said maybe we could do a correlation with other players from that game. But those are two spots out of the 13 that I have gravitated towards in my start to building so far. The thing I was going to mention with Jordan Love is obviously the perception is it's hard to stack that team, but it looks like Romeo Doubs is actually really rounding into over the last 5 weeks. The overall targets, the deep targets, and the red zone targets, Romeo Doubs is pretty far ahead of the rest of the receiver room, except for Jaden Reed on the overall targets. He's been getting 25% of the red zone targets, 27% of deep targets. And, it seems like things are starting to condense a little bit with that receiver room. And his price is $6,100. So everybody except Jaden Reed in that offense has stayed really low. Dontavian Wicks has had, I think, 14 receptions and 4 of them have been touchdowns. So it's another spot I definitely have interest in, but I will pass the baton back to you on which route you would like to continue.
I think the Dolphins. That's not like a secret. I think everybody's going to kind of understand that, and they're just so mispriced for. Tyreek. The Dolphins' offense with Tua is just so different. Tyreek's basically a 9K player on FanDuel, just way mispriced. Achane's, his first 2 games, you look back at, he had 19.5 and 26 FanDuel points the first 2 weeks. They do have Raheem Mostert back now. He got hurt in week 1, and then Jalen Wright has looked pretty good, and McDaniel's taken some heat for not getting Wright the ball enough. But even with all that, Achane's like an 8K player. So like those guys, and then Waddle's like a 7K player, but he is, he's down at 5,900 now. Amazing. So, those guys are going to be very popular as they should be. I think the interesting thing, the thing with Tua, and he's mispriced too, especially in, it's not like a, the Cardinals are 29th against opposing quarterbacks. It's not like they've been great, and Tua is only 7K. So he's going to be popular too. But I think maybe we can combine your 2 thoughts here. So we'll go with Achane and Tyreek, but not force Tua. And we'll see what we're left with here, but we can go with Doubs and Brian Thomas bringing back next to Jordan Love. Love, again, the Jaguars have been poor against opposing quarterbacks as well. You can see 32nd in that category. And they are, you look at Love's games. So he's played 5 games. He left the Philly game with 1 play left, basically. even with as many touchdowns as he's had, he has, his last 4 games since he came back, 4-2, 4-3. So averaging over 3 a game. He's basically, he needs, the thing with him is you have to get, or what he's shown so far, he's only that Minnesota game where he threw the ball 54 times is the only one where he got over 300 yards passing. So now that we have that 300-yard passing bonus, Love is not really minimal rushing production. So what you're going to need from him then is he's going to have elevated passing volume, which only happened when they fell way behind the the Jaguars. And he's going to need to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns. So that's basically some combination of really elevated passing volume, because otherwise he's going to get you a lot of these like 250-yard, 2 or 3 touchdown games, which aren't like bad. I'm starting in my season-long league, but when he's priced at 8,900, Daniels might not even play. So basically the second highest priced quarterback, you're going to need a lot out of him. So, I kind of think the way to go about this might be to add another player to this. Curious what will happen with ETN this week, because I think maybe playing like Brian Thomas and Bigsby would be a way to go. What do you think about that?
Obviously, Bigsby's looking great. My only concern would be ETN. What capacity is he going to be back?
Yeah, obviously, if ETN plays, then we wouldn't do that. But my thought here is that in order for Love to make sense, in order for him to have a game that can win you a tournament, not just one of these good 20-point games where he has 2 or 3 touchdowns and he throws for 250 yards. Again, which isn't like terrible, but like it feels good when like in the first half, yeah, he's got 130 yards and touchdown or 2. But when it levels off and he ends at like 240 and 2 or 3 touchdowns, that's not going to win you a tournament at 8,900. And so I guess where I'm going is, in order for him to pay off, in order for a Packers stack to make sense and give you a chance to win. Thomas is explosive enough. Maybe he can kind of do it on his own. But my thought is the Jaguars are probably going to have to come out pretty hot and score a decent number of points. Because if the Packers are just controlling the game, we saw it in the Rams game a few weeks ago. Like their general approach is like they're going to run the ball. They're going to be balanced, relatively slow on the play clock. It's not going to be a 40-50 pass attempt game for Love. So I guess what I'm saying is, do you want to stay with Thomas or do you want to add another Jaguar?
I think what balances out a little bit, and you're right, Jordan Love's price is too high typically for the type of quarterback he is, although he has been getting a lot of touchdowns. But what balances out a little bit is the price of his receivers, other than Reed, are really low. I would think maybe attach the tight end and do a double stack with Dubs and then Tucker Kraft, who's had some spike weeks this season so far. Maybe keep Brian Thomas in.
Yeah, we're definitely keeping Thomas. What I'm saying is what I think you need to have happen for this to work is, I'm not saying add a Packer. I mean, you could, but then you're adding elements to get wrong, I guess is what I'm saying. So like you have Jaden Reed, who's, he's 8,100. And to me, that's overpriced for,
it is.
For what, he's got 2 really good games, but also like he had 2 points last game. Like for a guy who's that high priced, that kind of floor, scares me, and they scored well. But anyways, they've got all these other guys, Watson, Dubs, Wicks is involved. Kraft is involved. Jacobs caught a touchdown last week. So I guess what I'm saying is you need two things to happen for Love to work out. You need him to score 3 or 4 touchdowns, and then you need the guy you play him with to kind of run good, to be like the benefactor of that one. And Reed and Jacobs are always going to be pretty involved. So these other guys, it's hard for me to see a spot where like a Dubs and Watson or a Dubs and Kraft are going to make sense. They might both get in the end zone, but it's going to be like one of them has a really good game, and hopefully Kraft then has like 3 for 30 and a touchdown, which I don't think that's winning you a tournament. So what I'm saying is Love with one of these guys, and if you want Dubs, that's fine. But then on the other side, to get there, you're going to need the Jaguars to score a bunch of points to where the Packers fall behind. So are you good with just Thomas, or do you want to add Bigsby?
I actually don't want to add Bigsby, but if we were to add another Jaguar, I would say Evan Ingram, maybe at the tight end spot. He started to come on again, coming back from injury. That kind of gives you somewhat of a full game stack. I mean, to your point of Love, yeah, that's what I was going to say. That makes. So
do we change it to Lawrence?
It's possible that would be the. You probably have to with 2 Jaguars. That's what I was just about to say, actually. Because with Love, you'd have to double stack for the potential of it to work out. I like Dubs just because the numbers are pointing towards that he's being more regularly used. Jaden Reed gets schemed, of course, but he's a slot guy. Dubs has kind of been getting targeted all over the field from the metrics I've been looking at. So, but yeah, we could do that too. I mean, obviously that definitely will not be a popular stack this week, but the Jaguars will definitely most likely be playing from behind. So it kind of makes sense from that perspective if we were to go to this game.
So what are your thoughts then on if you were to would you think about playing Jacobs with this? So you've got Jacobs and Dubs on one side, and then you've got the Lawrence, Thomas, Ingram Jaguars group on the other side.
That's definitely a way you could go about it, and that's actually kind of a strategic way in small field tournaments, especially, to just kind of overstack a game when you don't have to be optimal like you do in large field. Like we've mentioned, we're not really covering any specific type of tournaments. We're just kind of building a team, although we do kind of say that could be used in any type of tournament. That's probably more small field, I would think, just kind of overstacking a game, not having to be optimal, but hoping the game goes off. But I'm open to whatever. We're definitely in an interesting spot here on the fly.
And it's a good discussion to have, because the overstacking the game, and this is actually some people in our Discord have this has come up a little bit. Price, it's like when you go shopping, price matters. So last week, the Vikings and Lions game, and it ended up with 60 points or something. So it did well. St. Brown, Jefferson, Gibbs, all had very good games. But the issue is that, so it's price sensitive. So I think so this type of overstack, it has a very clear path to how it works, just in the sense that, if the Packers win this game 35-31, let's say that, Jacobs scores 2 touchdowns, Love throws 3, Dubs catches a couple of them. And then the Jaguars are, keeping up. They're not getting run out of the building. Maybe they fall behind and it's one of those games where they lose by 4, but they were down 28-14 going into the fourth quarter, and then they, score some late ones or something. But we don't care when the points come. But then you have Lawrence, Thomas, and Ingram. So it's okay, well, in comeback mode behind, facing a good team, maybe they come out flat and fall behind. Lawrence throws for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns at 7,200. most of those big plays and touchdowns likely to flow through these two guys who are both 6,500 or less. So like this type of game stack, I do think can work in large field and small field, just because the pricing wise, it makes a lot more sense. If last week, if you tried to game stack like this with Gibbs, St. Brown, Darnold, Jefferson, Addison, then you have, two 9K guys and an 8K guy. Even when it hits, you're just left like so bare with the rest of your lineup. Whereas like with this one, you still have 6,600 left. We throw Achane and Tyreek in there again, kind of betting on what we've talked about already, that Dolphins offense bounces back. Really, you're just betting on two spots, and for their prices, they both have like really high upside. So sorry to like digress there, but I do think it's a good discussion to have just because it is, the price, like an overstack like this on the right game where players have kind of suppressed prices can really, really pay off in a big way in all styles of contests. So that leaves us with 6,050. Is there a defense that you're locked in on this week?
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think it was a digression. I'm glad that we covered it this way because yes, this is we talked about two spots at the beginning, and we're attacking those two spots confidently with the player block of the Dolphins, with the return of Tua, and then the overall game environment of a 50.5, I think now. Game total on the slate. I think it's currently the highest game total on the slate. And so we're kind of attacking those spots that we're at least early in the week kind of seeing as angles that we want to go with. Defenses and a couple running backs too for that flex maybe. But definitely love the Lions at home against Tennessee. They're only 4,000. So that's pretty fair.
I couldn't believe that.
I couldn't either. Yeah.
I was like scrolling through them, like how in the world? Like I thought I saw Chargers at home against, Spencer Rattler, and if Carr is out again this week, and Olave, that Saints offense was just so dusted last week. The Chargers stood out to me. I'm like, 4,500 is pretty good. And then I kept scrolling down, and I saw Detroit at 4,000 against the Titans and Houston at 4,100 against the Colts. I'm just like,
and that's the other one. That's the other one I was going to mention is those two. If you put the Lions defense in, if you wanted to go that route, although it's probably good to have with so many games, this is a pretty heavy 1:00 spot, I think. But you got David Montgomery, I think you could pair with the Lions defense. Like I think that actually works out price wise. That's one way you could go. I don't know if we think with so many games on the slate, we're just hoping that the 1:00 window smashes so people can't catch up to it with the late games maybe. But late swap, it leaves a good salary for late swap. As always, guys, we're going to get more information during the week. That's probably going to adjust these initial thoughts that we'll have to account for. But yeah, no, I like where it's going actually based on attacking spots that we believe in that could produce fantasy goodness this week. So
yeah, I think you've got Montgomery makes sense there. He's a guy that, so like depending on the week, like he had the big game, he had a nice game against Dallas 2 weeks ago. The way the running back slate set up that week there was only I guess it was 11 on FanDuel, 11 games that week. And just there weren't that many of the high-end guys and not that many in great matchups. I think that like his best games are going to end up in this like around 20-point range. So the worry I have with him on a week like this, and he did lose a fumble and kind of got out-touched by Gibbs last week. He's not going to disappear, but you've got Hunt, who's the feature back, playing a Raiders team. You got Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker right below him. Even Brian Robinson facing what's been a run funnel Bears defense, potentially without Jaden Daniels. Or I think the optimal way for this week to play out for Robinson would be Daniels plays, because that's going to make the offense most efficient and kind of draw more attention. But I would think, I mean, if you're Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn for the Commanders, you got to think when they get near the goal line, they're not going to want Daniels with this rib injury, taking shots at the goal line if he plays, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying with Montgomery is, I think it's a good spot, but to win a tournament, I think this might be a fairly unique, like the overstack next to the Miami. What happens on weeks like this is too many people try to account for every spot. They're like, oh, well, I need a 49er with the value without Ayuk, and how can I not play anyone from the Atlanta Tampa game? And how can, and they start, looking at all these spots. So I think that there is like value in kind of betting heavily on these specific spots. But then with Montgomery, it's hard for me to see him outscoring all of these guys. Like none of these guys, having, beating him, I guess.
Yeah, I misspoke, by the way, on the pricing. You would not be able to get to David Montgomery. I'm just looking at the screen here. You're actually are you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, my bad. I was looking at another screen. Yeah.
Yeah, we got 8,100. So
gotcha. Yeah. So he'd be an option. I will give a quick shout out because he's just been. Here's some numbers. Joe Mixon for the Texans, and they're at home against Indianapolis. In the three full games he's played this year, he's accounted for over 60% of carries or targets in the red zone. I mean, 40 to 45% is considered elite. He even tops Kyron Williams in that metric, and Kyron Williams scores touchdowns every week. So another running back I'll probably wind up being bullish on is Joe Mixon, which we couldn't afford in this case. But just thought I'd give a little shout out. He's just been nuclear since he's been back from injury. But yeah, I mean, let me see. Also, so 8,100 in the flex. And obviously you have Montgomery. It doesn't look like Debo's going to play. Oh, Breece Hall.
Yeah,
I'm loving me some Breece now because I think the trend there is ever since Todd Downing has taken over the play calling from Nathaniel Hackett, it's like Breece Hall's return to elite status.
Yeah, he's and that's kind of what I was going for with the Montgomery thing is like I think he's likely to have a good game. And people, it's easy to think like, oh, maybe I get him at like 3 or 4%, and then when he scores 20, you're like, oh, sweet, but like, what does it really get you if you've got Hunt, Hall, Walker, Robinson all really close, and one or two of those guys goes for more than that? Like it's not really helping you. And I don't see Montgomery as like a 30-point type. He's not that type of skill set, right? Especially like I don't think the Titans are going to push them at all. They just traded DeAndre Hopkins this morning. Did you see that?
Yeah, I mentioned it at the beginning of our broadcast just briefly, like that it looked like that deal was getting done. So yeah, that's interesting.
I love Breece though. To where I was going with that is, the two games, as you alluded to, since Downing took over, he has 22.4 and 26.1 FanDuel points. And, you look at Montgomery, he's been at or below that number basically the whole time. And we saw at the end of last year, like it won't be surprising, I don't think, to anyone if in 2 weeks, Breece Hall's $9,300, $9,400. So I think, we've got some heavy bets on, the Dolphins, and then that Packers Jaguars game, and then basically it's like, okay, well, I think this Jets offense, despite the perception right now, or how they're getting drug in the media because Rodgers kind of brings it on them, and they got Adams, but I mean, I would think Tank Bigsby had a big game against the Patriots last week. Now the Patriots traveling home. Look at this. The narrative on this lineup is we've got both the Jags and Patriots coming back from London and playing the next week, betting on those defenses being jet lagged. So this is the jet lag lineup.
Nice. And we do have a little bit of money left over if you wanted to move up to the Texans defense, just on another roster, if you're doing multiple entries, maybe with the Breece Hall and the flex, based on the little bit of money left over there. But
yeah,
and I
like
where it's going.
And that's where, like, I think the Lions are a great play. I mean, I've got to think they're going to come in at like 25% owned, right?
Probably, yeah.
Which is all right. That's just a spot where maybe you do consider, when we get to Sunday morning, if ownership projections look like it's, 5% for the Texans and 20% for the Lions. The Lions could have a really good game, but if the Texans, if you can generate that kind of leverage, and depending on what the ownership looks like we know the Miami guys are going to be heavily owned. I don't know how popular this Green Bay Jacksonville game will be on such a, with 14 games on this slate. But if you are looking to differentiate a bit, you could, I think you can go either way with that, but that just making that one change at defense, which is the most variant position, just because, a guy can just like drop a ball, or Richardson, throws what was the play Lamar threw did you watch the Monday night game?
Just bits and pieces.
He tried to throw like a swing pass to, I don't know if it was to Flowers or who it was to, but he threw it backwards. So then it was incomplete, but it was a fumble because he threw it backwards, and then the Bucs recovered it. That's kind of what kept him in the game. So I blame Lamar for Godwin getting hurt. But I mean, there's just like fluky plays like that. It's so easy for a defense to have one fluky play, and now all of a sudden, the Texans outscore the Lions, and basically at the same price. So if you do have like a chalkier lineup, or you think this lineup that you really like is going to be a little chalky, that's a spot where just kind of accepting some uncertainty can pay off a lot of times.
I think the other thing that may help is that because there's so many games, it's amazing in week 8, there's not one bye week, by the way. It's so deep into the season. But with 13 games, or 14 maybe with the Dallas, San Francisco, that may spread out the ownership a little bit too. So it's not so condensed.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I do think that we get so conditioned to think and worry about ownership. But on these bigger slates, usually it's like the start of the year, the end of the year, and then this week is kind of unique to have it smack dab in the middle. But yeah, I mean, there's 28 teams. Like, nothing is going to be that condensed. Like I said, I think the Miami spot is going to be pretty clear, but like, that Jaguars Packers game, even with the high team total or game total, I don't think it's going to get out of hand, just because there's too many other spots that people are going to want to play. So yeah, I like that shout out, that thought process a good bit.
I don't think a Trevor Lawrence stack is going to get too out of hand, just in general. But it is an interesting spot though.
Yeah. Okay. Did you notice my hat this week?
Yeah, I was about to say, FanDuel represent. Where do I get one?
Oh, I got it. You're gonna need a time machine. I got it 20 15, I qualified for their live final out in Vegas. It was before Vegas banned or before Nevada banned DFS, before all the circus started. But the NFL live final was out there at the where was it? Why can't I think of the name? It'll come to me. But anyways, it was out there for the live final, and we got like a bag and some merch. It's a flat brim. I never wear this type of hat, but I was in my closet this morning moving some stuff out, and I was like, oh, I'll throw that on. That'll be perfect.
Remember these guys too now, every once in a while.
What's that?
Remember the Jinx Remover?
Oh, yeah.
Our unofficial sponsor.
Right. This is killing me. Why can't I think of the Cosmopolitan in Vegas? So
okay, gotcha.
That was fun. I spent Saturday night too long at the blackjack table. It wasn't good. And I learned about Sundays in the NFL on the West Coast. Also not good. Wasn't a good combination. Leaving the blackjack table at 4:30 a.m. NFL kicks off at 10.
You got to stick with poker, guys. You're not playing against the house. Yeah. You just got to deal with the rake.
It wasn't the house that was my problem. It was the waiter. But we digress.
Yeah, we digress.
Yeah. So no, it was a good week. I like our lineup. I think we touched on some good, overall just principles for weeks like this, and just game stacks, and a lot of good stuff. We had to fight through some technical stuff to get here, but
my bad on that.
We're good. We got it all. We got the info to the people. We are men of the people. So again, check us out. 30% off Inner Circle the rest of the year. Use code OWS30. Get locked into all our stuff. My FanDuel player grid, our FanDuel leverage piece. I also do a DFS interpretation now for the Sunday night game. And then you can hop in our Discord and get all of the deep strategy thoughts as we are heading into the weekend. So I am Mike. He is Maximus, a.k.a. Steve. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.